Parkinson's disease is a neurodegenerative disease that affects neurotransmitters in the brain. It affects the neurotransmitter known as dopamine. As you may have heard, dopamine helps control the brain's reward center as well as its pleasure center. But if I've angled this right, this finger here may be pointing to something in the back there. If you look closely, just like above the blinds, you can see that there's nothing. However, if you turned your head to look at this nothing, then you just used quite a bit of dopamine. This is because of a section of the brain called the basal ganglia. The purpose of the basal ganglia is to regulate voluntary motor movement. The basal ganglia requires a lot of dopamine to work. But there is another part of the brain called the substantia nigra. This fortunately contains an extremely high amount of dopamine for the basal ganglia. Luckily, the substantia nigra is the part of the brain that gets affected by Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease actually does is it massively lowers the amount of dopamine in the substantia nigra. So here's a little comparison to show the decrease in dopamine. Here you can really see the difference as one neuron works well and the other doesn't. The signaling still works, but Parkinson's is a progressive disease that will get worse over time. So, here's a way to detect early symptoms of Parkinson's disease. So, if you hold your hand out, kinda like this picture here, and if you try to hold it as still as you can, and see if there's any twitches or the like, and if you see your hand is not being stable, then I'm pretty sure that's fine, because Parkinson's disease mainly affects people over 60. And the tremors that people would have would appear more like this. However, that's only in its later stages. But if you were over 60 and were infected with Parkinson's disease, here's how life would be, broken down into stages. During the first stage, the person only has mild symptoms. These symptoms are just like minor tremors, and maybe a change in posture and walking, and some change in facial expression as well. However, the person is still completely fine on their own. With stage 2, all the symptoms get worse. The walking problems and poor posture is more apparent, and the person may feel rigid. The person is still able to live alone, but daily tasks are more difficult to do at this point. Stage 3 is considered to be the mid-stage, as this is the point where the person is kind of on the fence, in between independent and needing assistance. So in this stage, the person has more of a loss of balance, falls are more common, the person is more slow, and doing things like eating or dressing up is now harder. Stage 4, the symptoms have gotten to a point where the person is unable to live alone and must get some assistance and a walker to help. Stage 5 is the last stage, and at this point, it may be possible that the person is unable to stand or walk, so the person would require a wheelchair or be bedridden. An interesting part about this stage is that the person may experience hallucinations and delusions. This may be because of the lack of dopamine and signals being fired in the brain. However, Parkinson's disease itself isn't deadly. What Parkinson's actually does is it leads to situations where there are life-threatening risks. For example, people with Parkinson's can have difficulty swallowing, and this can cause someone to take food into the lungs, leading to something like pneumonia, which they die from. Parkinson's disease isn't curable, however it can be treated in multiple ways. The first and most popular being L-Dopa. L-Dopa is a chemical that is one enzyme's cut away from being a replacement for all the lost dopamine. In its regular form, L-Dopa can get through cell membranes in the brain. If medication doesn't work, then there is a surgery available for people with Parkinson's disease. The surgery is not a cure, however, and it does not slow down the disease's progress. Now here are some ways on lessening the chances of getting Parkinson's disease in the future. Exercise is reported to help, as it helps train the motor functions within your body. Apparently smoking can help prevent against Parkinson's disease, as nicotine, a chemical within the cigarettes, has a massive amount of benefits. However, it is the one that makes the addictive trait. Caffeine helps too. So, you might have been wondering, what actually causes Parkinson's disease? And well, I don't know. What experts have been saying, we don't know. They have been linking pesticides and Parkinson's together, and also a bunch of other environmental effects. They are saying certain people with certain genes could be more vulnerable to the environment, and therefore more vulnerable to Parkinson's. Researchers have noticed the presence of Lewy bodies. They are the microscopic markers of Parkinson's disease. They also contain something called alpha-synuclein, which could reveal what causes Parkinson's. But that was all, so back to you in the studio.